Hello everybody. Much like in the previous chapter, we still don't know what's going on. This chapter was also clouded in mystery and we don't really get a lot of straight answers. The only straight answer that we get is that we're going into a flashback, which is the most excited I've been for a flashback since I can remember. The cover page shows us Chiffon and Capone cautiously inspecting the Dressrosa terrain. And if you look very closely and squint, you can see the silhouettes, the mini silhouettes of some people deep in the background. I also like how you can see the lines that the birdcage left. You know, those lines on the floor. Yeah, I thought that was a nice detail. We turn back our clock 2 days and we find that the army is very excited and hyped about the final battle in Onigashima Island. And then Frankie says that they have to prepare the ships for 5,000 men because they have 4,200. And it's interesting because a couple of chapters ago he said like we should make these ships sturdy enough for 10,000 men. I feel like that discrepancy in the numbers is important because technically speaking, since he requested that the ships be for 10,000 men and now he's saying we got to ready them up for 5,000, technically speaking, you could lose the ships that can hold 5,000 men and still be okay. In other words, just in case somebody wanted to bomb and destroy your fleet, you can use half your fleet as a decoy and have the enemy destroy that part of your fleet, and then still have half of your fleet to spare. Sturdy enough to carry 5,000 men. Usopp says that they're going to be rolling in aboard the Sunny on the day of the final battle. Except the Sunny gets destroyed in this chapter. Destroyed by some Smile Double Fruit users. One that looks like an eagle, and then there's another one that looks like a butterfly. This is giving me Whole Cake Island flashbacks, like, that scene where supposedly the Sunny gets destroyed and the Big Mom pirates are cheering and stuff, and it turns out that Waratsumi snuck the Sunny into his mouth. I don't personally believe that the Sunny got destroyed in this chapter. We know that atom wood, which is the material that the Sunny is made out of, is pretty resistant, but even if it did got destroyed, even if it did get damaged via that explosion, I don't think it would be the end of the world, because I think, Frankie would be able to upgrade it or would be able to fix it after the final fight of the arc. I think this, if it's ever going to be damaged, I think this would be the place for it to get damaged and for the repercussions not to be that huge. Like in Whole Cake Island when, we thought it had been destroyed and it's like, well, that's a very important moment for it not to be destroyed because the Yonko is coming at you. But here in Wano, as long as they win the fight against Kaido, Frankie can take his time to, make the necessary repairs. And again, even upgrade the ship. That being said, though, I think this is a decoy. I think the ship that got blown up was a fake. I mean, we don't even get to see the aftermath of the explosion. We just get the explosion, and then that's it. So, we need more details. It's obvious that Oda is hiding something in this chapter. Another very important comment here is in the beginning where we see the Yakuza bosses talking about the plans and stuff. I think it's one of the Minks who says that some of Orochi's subordinates, some of the officials are going to be staying back in the mainland. And I think that comment is super important because even though this chapter, the intention of this chapter is to get you to think oh no, Orochi is destroying all these bridges. What is the Alliance going to do with all these bridges destroyed? There's another side to Orochi destroying those bridges, which is that he's actually cutting off his own men. So if they wanted to get together to counter an attack, they would find it difficult to do so because the bridges are also destroyed for Orochi's men. So the fact that he destroyed all those bridges in this chapter, in my opinion, was a stupid move because he's also restricting the mobility of his own men by doing that. It kind of ends up making it easier for the Straw Hat Alliance to divide and conquer the mainland of Wano. Luffy, Chopper, and Brook end up getting some pretty cool looking Kabuto armor. Luffy's pants even has the Kozuki crane crest on them. I really like how Robin's reaction to the armor contrasts Luffy's, Brook's, and Chopper's reaction, because the boys are all like, oh yeah, this is really cool, it makes us look manly. Robin's off in that corner saying, oh, you look like bugs.
Now, this isn't the only time we've seen the Straw Hats in samurai armor. I remember back during the trip from Punk Hazard to Dressrosa, Oda gave Luffy, Usopp, and Chopper some samurai gear as well. In fact, the helmet that Luffy has in this chapter resembles the one that Usopp wore during Strong World a lot. But the overall design for these Wano Edo period inspired armors, especially the one for Brook, is just super top notch.
We got a Zoro versus Sanji moment in this chapter, which is great, and it was, I think, long overdue, because the closest we got to it was a little brief moment in the capital where Zoro and Hiyori run away, and that kind of leaves Sanji heartbroken, and he thinks to himself, she's with that moss head even though he has a lower bounty than me? And that's as far as we got. So I'm really glad we got that playful dig about Sanji teasing Zoro over the bounty thing. Now the transition between Sanji making fun of Zoro and then that cliff floating in midair with Nami being upset in the corner is just Oda proving his mastery of comedic timing. I also thought it was ridiculous how Zoro ends up yelling his sword's name with the attack. Like, I don't think that's going to be a thing that he does from here on out. It's not like when he attacks with Wado Ichimonji, he's going to be like, Wado Ichimonji! No, that's just like a way of Oda letting us know that he used Enma for the comedic gag of it. It just made the scene kind of stupid and therefore very funny to me. Robin says something that I think is very important. She says that she overheard Orochi say that the entrance to Onigashima is winter. So my first thought was like, is that like a password that you have to say to get through the doors and into Onigashima? Winter? Is that like a code? Or did Orochi mean that there's actually a second entrance into Onigashima? Because if that's the case, like Ringo is the land of winter. So does that mean that there's like a secret hidden passage that leads from Ringo underwater to Onigashima Island? Because that'd be kind of cool. Maybe that's where the Straw Hat Alliance is currently hiding right now. You know, underground. And the main reason for why I'm saying this, that Ringo might have a secret passage, is because if you remember the weapons that Gyukimaru collected, he had them stashed in like a secret lair. Plus, we know that Ringo is essentially a graveyard. It's a cemetery, but graves have like, you know, they're holes in the ground. So it kind of gets me to think that maybe there is a tunnel that leads from Ringo to Onigashima. Then we get confirmation about the Minks actually planning on using their Sulong forms during the fight, which we knew back in Zou when Inuarashi said, like, you know, next time we fight Jack or, you know, Kaido's men, we'll be ready, we'll use our trump card, and there's a shot of the moon. And also back when Lady Toki made that prophecy about the raid happening during a moonlit night, so you can just put two together that the Minks were going to be using their Sulong form. So there's going to be a huge army of them. What's interesting though is that I think one of the musketeers says that, you know, if it's a cloudy sky, if the moon is blocked with the clouds, then that will ruin their plans. But even then, my thought was like, well, even if it's cloudy, couldn't Nami just use Zeus to blow the clouds out of the way? So I think Operation Sulong is a go, no matter what. Now, the fact that Oda decided to have Luffy bring up Jimbe in this chapter, I think serves as a reminder that his purpose was left inconclusive. And remember, like, One Piece is written for a younger audience, so this is like Oda's way of reminding us that Jimbe decided to stay behind back in Whole Cake Island to allow the Straw Hats to escape Big Mom, and the Vinsmokes did the same thing. So since Oda is bringing up Jimbe up now, it's probably a pretty big hint that, you know, he should be making an entrance soon. Either that, or we're going to find out what actually happened to him after the Straw Hats escaped Whole Cake Island. You don't just bring up a character like that if he's not going to be reintroduced into the story relatively soon. I mean, Oda did the same thing with Apu recently, where he had Kid mention the fact that he had made an alliance with Apu and Hawkins, and then a couple of chapters later, we saw Apu arrive in Wano with the numbers. I was going to say that perhaps, since Jimbe is the helmsman of the Straw Hat crew, that maybe he was the one who actually saved the Sunny from the explosion, from the bomb. But then I thought about it a little bit more, and I think that scenario would just be way too similar to the scenario in Whole Cake Island where the Sunny, in fact, gets saved by a fishman. And I think Oda's a little bit more creative than that, so I don't think it was Jimbe who saved the Sunny, if the Sunny got saved that way. But who knows? I mean, because there's only two entrances into Wano. One is up the waterfall, you know, with the carps, with the fishes. Well, technically, I think fishermen should be able to get up that waterfall without the help of the fish. And then the second entrance is through that tunnel. Like, you pass the waterfall, and then you get to that elevator that kind of pulls you up. So if Jimbe shows up, he's probably going to swim to the top of the waterfall along with his army of fishmen. And that got me to think about another thing, which is that Big Mom's crew, the last time we saw them, they were still at the base of the waterfall, so maybe they run into each other. I don't know, there's so many things that can happen here. We learned that Kuri got burned to the ground, apparently by Hold'em, because the citizens or the residents there were kind of like, you know, taking the blame for the Alliance or for stealing the food. And to me, it's just like so obvious that Luffy would never let that actually happen. Like, Otsuru is Kinemon's wife. I don't think that, like, anyone would allow that to happen. So imagine if they actually did perish in that fire. Just like, yep, those people are dead. Those innocent people are dead because nobody showed up to help them. That just doesn't make any sense to me. Again, there's so much withdrawal of information here. Plus, if they stole a lot of food, there's no way that Sanji or Luffy would ever let that amount of food go to waste. Again, we see Orochi marking down these bridge sites that he had destroyed, which again, I think is just going to come back and bite him in the butt in the end. Orochi mentions briefly that he was able to do this because he was tipped off that he had intel, he had reports come in about this being the plan. So that's just another reminder of like, hey, there's still a traitor within the alliance. Which is interesting because when we go back to the Scabbards and we see their reaction, how they're grieving, how they're really, really distraught, we get a close-up or individual panels to each of their reactions to their face, to each of their faces, and yet the only one that we don't get to see up close is Kiku. It's just really strange. We just get to see Kiku with the armor, and then there's like a rumble sound, and I'm like, is she hungry? What's going on with that? But another thing is that Kiku is the only Scabbard who's not wearing one of those Amigasa hats. It's just really strange. Like Kiku stands out a lot in this chapter. But maybe that's what Oda wants us to think, so that when he finally reveals who the traitor is, we'll be shocked and it'll be somebody that we never expected. Another thing, and this is something that I forgot to mention in my previous review, is that I thought it was super convenient how there's all this wreckage, right? There's all these typhoons and stuff, like these whirlpools, and there's all this destruction, and yet there's just this one boat that can conveniently carry all of the Scabbards to Onigashima Island. I just thought that was so weird, that if somebody actually destroyed the fleet, they just decided to leave that one little boat intact. So what I think is obvious happened is that Frankie or somebody else left that boat there for the Scabbards to be able to do exactly what they're planning to do, which is to go over to Onigashima Island by themselves so that they can meet up with the Straw Hat Alliance in Onigashima. It just seems way too contrived and convenient otherwise. I think Frankie or somebody else left that boat, planted that boat there. That way when everybody reunites and Kinemon is yelling and telling Luffy, I thought you had abandoned us, Luffy can be like, oh no, don't you remember we left you that little boat there? But now it's time for the start of the Oden flashback, and Oden starts us off with a bit of dialogue of him saying that there's a reason for why the country of Wano has been isolated for hundreds of years. And to me, that reason has to be either ancient weapon related, void century related, or poneglyph related, or all of the above. Which one do you choose? We go back 39 years in time, which is a great moment to start this flashback because we know that the God Valley incident happened 38 years ago. So this flashback is opening up a year before that incident, so I can't wait to learn more about Roger and Xebec and the fight of God Valley, even though Wano is isolated. But we know that at one point, Whitebeard and then Roger has to recruit Oden, so I can't wait to get to that part of the flashback. Super exciting stuff. A lot of world building is up ahead. In fact, even though this is a flashback, because we're getting close to the end of One Piece, this flashback is going to be of utmost importance. I can just feel it. I mean, you just know that this flashback is going to be absolutely legendary when Oda decides to open it up by confirming that Antoine Dodson was originally from Wano.
Oden seems to be wearing one of those giant sumo belts like the one that Luffy wore during Film Gold. But most importantly, he also has Ame no Habakiri and Enma with him. So what's interesting here is that in the beginning of Wano, when we were first introduced to Orochi, there were some kids in school, in a classroom, and the kids were learning about the history of Wano and how apparently Lord Orochi used his famous two-sword style to defeat Oden and his 9 red scabbards. So that obviously was a lie, because Oden was the one using two swords. So the idea or the myth about Orochi being this super famous warrior of the two-sword style is obviously false, and it was originated by Oden and was later attributed to Orochi to make Orochi look good. It's the power of propaganda, essentially. Now, since we know that Enma has the ability of sucking up or absorbing Rio, I hope that we learn more about Ame no Habakiri as well. Like, maybe Ame no Habakiri has another ability that we don't know of, so hopefully we find out what that ability is during this flashback. And then another thing that I think we're pretty much guaranteed to see during this flashback is how Oden ended up giving Kaido his scar.
Overall, I thought it was a pretty solid setup chapter of One Piece. I can't wait to get into this flashback. Like I said, it's probably the most excited I've been to begin a flashback in this series ever, because I can just tell that there's going to be a lot of very valuable information that we can get out of it. So I can't wait for that flashback to begin. And then after the valuable information of the flashback, we have the beginning of the final fight against Kaido. So it's like, I mean, how can you go wrong with that? Thank you so much for watching, guys. Like the video if you did. I appreciate that. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. Comment down below with your thoughts. And if you've seen the Joker movie, let me know what you thought about the movie in that video if you've seen it. I really appreciate that. Thanks again. Catch you guys later. Bye.